Good evening, everyone. Before I begin this event, I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. Virginia Tech acknowledges that we live and work on the Tutelo and Monacan people's homeland, and we recognize their continued relationships with their lands and waterways. We further acknowledge that legislation and practices like the Morrill Act of 1862 enabled Virginia to finance and found Virginia Tech through the forced removal of Native nations from their lands, both locally and in Western territories. Furthermore, the labor of enslaved Black people also generated revenue and enabled the creation of Virginia Tech. Because of this historical reality and legacy, as an institution, we have moral and ethical obligations to create a more diverse and inclusive community, one that includes those who were prohibited from attending Virginia Tech because of the legacy of racism in America and Virginia. This is the collective work and responsibility of Inclusive VT, our institutional and individual commitment to UPROSM in the spirit of community, diversity, and excellence. So thank you for attending in the Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Heritage Month's APIDA Women's Presence in the Workforce. My name is Dr. Nina Ha, and I'm the director of the Asian Cultural Engagement Center, or the ACE Center. Tonight's event is also being co-sponsored in collaboration with the Career and Professional Development. And now I am handing it off to Anna. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ha. Welcome everyone, and thank you guys for joining this event. We, as part of the Virginia Tech Alpha Kappa Delta Phi Sorority Incorporated alumni chapter, we're collaborating with the ACE Center in this APIDA Women in the Workplace event. So we'll be talking about different challenges that the panelists have faced in the workplace, as well as in university, microaggressions, success, and just kind of the overall APIDA woman experience. And to introduce our panelists, or I guess I'll introduce myself first. My name is Anna Inkter. I graduated Virginia Tech in May 2019, and I currently work as a management consulting senior analyst for Accenture. I work in federal consulting, so that is where I am, and I'll let the panelists Jenny Wang and Panisa introduce themselves, so you guys can say your name, the year you graduated tech, and then what you currently do for work.
Okay, I'll go next. Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Wang. I graduated in spring of 2015, so a while ago. I am now in accounting and I work at Redfin Corporation in Seattle, Washington. Did I miss anything?
Hi everyone, I'm Panisa. I graduated May of 2016 and now I am a pharmacist working for Safeway up in Northern Virginia.
Thank you guys. So for today's event, since we have a more intimate group, definitely want to make this kind of conversational and very comfortable for everyone. And if you guys, I have questions that I'll be asking the panelists, but if you all have any questions that you want to expand on or would like to ask and hear from the panelists from, or even share your own experiences, definitely feel free to do so. And ask questions by coming off of mute, or you can type them in the chat and we can get to them. But do want to make this a very comfortable environment and more conversational. So since the three of us did graduate Virginia Tech, the first question I wanted to ask was, how was your experience at Virginia Tech as a member of the APIDA community? I know at least when I was in school, I believe it was about 15% of Virginia Tech's campus that was Asian American or identified as Asian American. So how would you say your experience was, and was it kind of defined by being Asian American or just kind of anything in that realm?
I would say in school, being Asian American was a huge part of my identity, and I think I wanted it to be that way. I came from a small private school where I was one of 4 Asian people and like one of 5 non-white people. So coming to tech where there were so many orgs that focused on being Asian and Asian heritage, and then finding out that there's a whole sorority that is, Asian interest and Asian focused, that really piqued my interest. And so that was something that I really leaned into at Tech. And I feel like we had a lot of great resources, and a lot of great opportunities to build up those resources as well, with our organization. So that was a huge part of my experience at Tech.
Yeah, for me, same with Jenny. At Tech, I definitely hung out with a lot of Asian women a lot. When I didn't think I was gonna join a sorority, but then I joined KDFI and everything was great. But it was really nice because it was kind of like home away from home, especially when you're like out at Blacksburg. It's like really country and there's not much, at least there wasn't that much Asian food when I was there. So like being around with like all the sisters and everything, we all got to cook and like cook for each other, and that was great too. And just being part of the sorority had a lot of like opportunities to meet like older people who graduated and like see how they evolved and like what jobs they were able to get. And yeah, that's good. It was a great experience.
Yeah, I would agree. For me, I grew up in Northern Virginia, so it was, I would say, more diverse than I guess in some other places, but I never really embraced my Asian American heritage until I would say probably even like the later half of college, when I really started getting more comfortable in my skin and discovering KD-Phi and AASU, the Asian American Student Union. That definitely helped me embrace being Asian American and being part of the community, and kind of taking a role in, standing up for my community. Because before, honestly, like in school or in back in high school and middle school, I think I always tried to play it down or, not really embrace it as much. So I definitely had a good experience at Tech and am very privileged to say that. So to give a little bit more context, Jenny, Panisa, and I were all part of Alpha Kappa Delta Phi. So would you guys say that with the connections and meeting the alumni who, of course, already had careers established, do you guys think that influenced your career decisions at all, or kind of opened up role models for you?
I think career-wise, I was less influenced just because I needed to figure out what I wanted to do. But it was very refreshing just to see, Asian women in the workforce and what that looked like. And there were so many different paths that our alums took. Like a lot of people were in the medical field, a lot of people were corporate, and then a lot of other people, started their own business. So it was very refreshing to see that, and I guess gave me more confidence in like, I can do what I want, even if my family doesn't have that background, even if some of the other Asian families that I know, like from when I was a kid, they don't have that background. So it was good to see and good to have that network and like be able to talk to them and like hear what they had to say about, just the professional world and what we should be doing as undergrads.
I feel like for me, like a lot of our sisters became pharmacists, and the irony is that all of them told me not to do it. Like, don't pursue pharmacy school or become a pharmacist. But I actually really enjoyed it. But it was kind of just great to see that, like, if our sisters can do it, like I can do it too, even though they told me not to do it. But yeah, so yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat as Jenny. I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I graduated as an international studies major, but now I'm doing business, and that's the major I switched out of. So like it just goes any which way.
Yeah.
So following up on that, would you guys say you have women role models, or what women support and inspire you on your career path? So that could be celebrities or family, colleagues, or just anyone who you would say supports and inspires you.
I feel like Beyonce inspires me. I feel like she has just more hours in the day to get all of like what she does done, but you know, she doesn't. She has the same amount of hours as we do, but I think just like her being so nice and like so graceful when she does things, I like look up to that a lot, and how she supports other women and like makes space for other people too, I think is very important. And yeah, definitely look up to her. And her work ethic is crazy. She's always like pushing herself to do more. And I think one thing about her is like she always does it for herself, really. Like she pushes herself to do things that like are like outside the norm, or like things that people say that she probably can't do. But
and I feel like she has a lot of responsibility resting on her shoulders too, because she's Black, she's a woman, and you know, she's part of a power couple with Jay-Z. So having to make sure that she has her own standing in her relationship, but also, you know, as a Black woman, she has to kind of pave the way for other Black people, for other women, and it's you know, a lot of responsibility on her, and she carries it very well.
Very, very well. She's definitely one of my biggest inspirations also. And for me, I think Beyonce, she's very direct in what she does and very intentional, which I really appreciate. And that's something that I try to implement into my own life and, you know, carry that with me, because I think when I was growing up, you know, as an Asian woman, I've always been like, you know, follow the rules and kind of be on that straight and narrow path, and don't go outside, don't speak up too much, you know, just kind of lay low and do what you need to do. So for Beyonce to be very, you know, like outspoken, and she's like, if she wants to do something, she's going to do it. She's going to give it her all and more. That has definitely given me inspiration in my career and just throughout my life, as I feel like that might sound a little bit corny, but given me kind of that almost permission that I can be more than what standards are set for me.
Yeah. I mean, clearly we're all Beyonce fans here. But, you know, like celebrities aside, I think just women in my life, just my mom, my grandma, like in my family, the women, we're definitely like a matriarchal family where the women kind of are the ones that are holding the whole family up and the ones that are, you know, pushing boundaries. And I think that's something that, you know, I've drawn a lot of inspiration from, is just like my grandma immigrated here with 9 kids in tow, and she did that so that, you know, and that's part of the immigrant experience, right? Like your parents and your grandparents, they sacrificed so that you could have a better life. And sometimes that's not a great thing because you feel a lot of pressure that you have to live up to that. But other times when it's very doable and they, you know, are encouraging you, you just get like an extra boost of like, you know, the things that they've been through, that runs in my blood too. Like they fought through it, and that's something that I can do too. And so like maybe it's in a different way where, you know, they were fighting for a better life, and now I can fight not only for myself, but for, you know, my future children and for women like you guys that are my age. Like I can start breaking those barriers in the workplace now for you guys, for it to be easier for you guys when you do, you know, join the workforce.
That's very well said.
Yeah.
For me, I also wanted to mention my job that I'm currently in right now, or the project that I'm on. I want to say like way more female leaders than male. And that is really like, as soon as I entered the project, I was like, wow, this is so out of the norm for me, because, you know, my lead was a woman, my like her boss is a woman, the senior managers and even the client lead and stuff, they're all women. So being in that female dominated world is just like, it's almost like a high, because that's not what I'm used to, or that's not what you usually see. Granted, there are less women of color, which, you know, obviously should be worked on, but at least having that one foot in the door of actually having women leaders is really inspiring to see. But definitely those kind of role models in my life inspire me as well. So going a little bit more into the professional realm, have you guys faced any gender specific or race, ethnicity specific challenges or stereotypes in the professional world, or even like in your pharmacy school and things like that, that you've had to overcome in your career, and how did you navigate those?
Absolutely. I think just the corporate world, at least Redfin, like real estate business, it's still very heavily male dominated. And, you know, my whole chain of command in finance and accounting is all white old men. And that's something that is, you know, like I've definitely noticed it. And I don't think that there is any intentional racism. Like I feel like they are very inclusive and they try to be, and they're all really great people overall. But there are just things that they won't understand about being a woman or being a person of color. And those are the things that, you know, they cannot understand because they're not any of those things. So an example would be, you know, like when I get a promotion, like things that'll run through my head are like, did I get this promotion because I'm a person of color and they're trying to make me a token, you know, in our department, because, you know, we've had a lot of issues with diversity in upper management. And then, or if I don't get a promotion, I'm like, okay, was that because I'm an Asian woman? Is that because, you know, something that culturally I'm doing that doesn't fit their standards for leadership? And like, those are the things that run through my head that they don't even think about. For them, it's just like, we made this decision solely based on like X, Y, and Z. And for me, I'm like, I need more details than just like a general, you know, that's not, that's why we didn't give it to you. Like, I need a specific career ladder to be able to know that what I'm going through is a fair and unbiased process. And so that's something that I've brought to HR. That's something that we've built out, that we've been working on. That touches on a lot of different things. Like, you know, one is the bamboo ceiling in the workplace. You don't want to be passed up for promotions based on cultural differences. So like, you know, the fact that in Chinese culture, you're not supposed to talk back to your authorities. You're not supposed to question your elders as much. Like, as much as I am Americanized and different than the traditional Chinese ways, like I still have that ingrained in me where I'm not going to, I have to have like 150%, 150%, I have to be 150% sure that what I'm going to say is correct or is different than what, you know, the male colleague is saying. And I need to know that that's not going to work against me in what they deem as leadership terms. So that's the bamboo ceiling that we're working against in the workplace a lot as Asian people. And then as women, you know, it's just, we have all heard that women, when they're aggressive or if they're dramatic or if, you know, if you show emotions, that's, you know, a sign of weakness. a lot of those things that you just have to battle on your own, but also like, you know, talk to HR about, talk to the other women in your workplace about, like if it's something that's really affecting everyone, then that's something that needs to be addressed. And you just have to like work together to figure that out.
Some of the challenges that I've had to deal with, especially, so I work at clinics right now to give COVID shots as a pharmacist with Safeway. And my team is pretty diverse, I would say, but we're mainly females. But something that we get a lot is that when patients come in to get their shot, some of them can be like really, really rude, and they can like they've thrown papers at us before. They like kind of like chuck their IDs or their like insurance card at us before, and just like their tone is really rude when they're talking to us, which I don't know if it necessarily has to do with the fact that like we're Asian, really, and they think it's because of us already, you know, like this coronavirus thing. But like in those cases, sometimes we have to kind of have our like white pharmacists go out and try to like de-escalate the situation, or have them be the one to like really talk to the patients and counsel them with everything that's going on, just because like the rest of us, they've been like kind of rude to. So that is kind of challenging, especially when we have like pharmacists who aren't Asian Americans but are Asians, you know, and maybe their like speech is not as clear, and then you have people or patients who are getting frustrated with not understanding like the counseling portion of the shot or something like that, and you could see that they're like, what did you say, like I can't even understand you, or like make those kind of comments. And so like, you know, it's just a lot of little things like that is kind of frustrating to see, because we're trying to do a good deed and then you just have people be rude, and it's kind of hard to be like, why, you know. But yeah, those are some things that we as a team, we kind of know when to step in and try to help each other out, which I am really grateful for.
Would you say from working before COVID and working on the vaccines and before the rise in all the Asian hate crimes, would you say that the treatment from, I don't know if they're patients, would you say that it has changed drastically from coronavirus and like all the hate crimes?
I feel like they're a little bit more rude, or they're more like straightforward with being rude, you know. Yeah.
Like they feel more comfortable with
Yeah.
being rude?
More
We're not even
outspoken with
trying
being
to
rude.
hide it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I would say so. Yeah.
I feel like the previous administration probably had something to do with that,
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
definitely.
terrible, Panisa. I'm sorry you have to go through that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you have allies who work with you though, who are
Yeah.
like willing to step in, but
Yeah.
shouldn't have situations where they have to step in.
Yeah.
Jenny, you mentioned that you spoke with HR about kind of, you know, the bamboo ceiling and things like that. How did you approach that conversation? Because at least for me, when I'm thinking about, you know, if it's something like negotiating my salary or, you know, things like
Yeah.
that, it's so nerve-wracking and I get imposter syndrome, you know, like crazy. So how did you approach that conversation?
I think the first step is to talk to your manager and just let them know that you're unhappy about something. In my case, I wasn't really unhappy. I just wanted things to be more clear. I wanted the career ladder to actually be built out instead of just something that they just kept talking about. And that was something that HR, and I scheduled a meeting with my HR business partner, and all of our organizations at Redfin have one that's assigned to them. And they're very open, they're very, willing to talk to you. So I just put some time on our calendar And the career ladders was actually an initiative that they were trying to drum up support for and like roll out. And so it worked out really well because they already kind of had a plan. And when I talked to them and like just wanted more clarity on it, they were like, that's something that you should absolutely have. They were very reaffirming, you know, just like that is something that our whole organization, our whole company should have, because that is what ultimately, you know, is fair and is equitable for everybody, because you're not questioning like why you're getting promoted or why you're not getting promoted. And so it worked out for me really well. And, you know, our whole team kind of got into it. It helps that I had a lot of allies on my team as well. And I had been talking to them about it, you know, not to like stir up drama or create any, you know, bad feelings about work, but it was just like, hey, like, what do you think about, you know, the next step? Like, what do you think should be incorporated in the next step? And like, what does that look like to you? And so it was a lot of collaboration. It was a lot of good timing, but it was also just that, you know, Redfin's a really great place to work and they really listen to their employees. And I don't think that that's the case in every other, you know, company. So I've heard a lot of horror stories from friends and from other HR departments, but I think the big thing here is just to, you know what you want and know like what you're asking for, and then go for it. And, you know, like the worst they can do is say no, and then you have to find other ways to go around it. But if you don't ever ask for anything, then they'll never know that you wanted it in the first place. So that was something that my manager told me. It was like, yeah, go and ask HR and, you know, see what they say, and I'll support whatever, you know, you want to do in terms of what they say. And it just turned out really well.
That is actually really inspiring to hear. I feel like that takes a lot of courage, or at least from my side, or like from listening in on it.
Mm-hmm.
I see there's a question in the chat, or there's two, but we answered the first one. This one is from Daisy. When you face microaggressions/aggressions like what you described at work, Panisa, do you practice any specific techniques to process that and help yourself grow your confidence despite those occurrences?
I think for me, what I've kind of trained myself to do is just like at the end of the day, I'm trying to help someone regardless of how they act towards me. I kind of like listen in one ear and let it go out the other ear, and like I just continue to be nice to them, or like try to explain things the best way I can, and try not to show any like frustrations. I mean, because like people are gonna be people, and we're always gonna like like very few, you know, like very few, and we're gonna encounter them. But I mean, I feel like the bigger picture is, you know, just helping them. And like if you continue to be nice to them, and they just, I mean, I feel like at the end, how worse can they get to you and be towards you, you know? So I really try not to escalate the situation. Kind of just try to work around it, but you know, I probably will never see them again. So yeah, I try not to let it get to me that much.
Yeah. Microaggressions at work are very tricky because usually, you know, they're from coworkers, or Panisa, in your case, they're the clients that you have to serve. So you definitely don't want to escalate it, like you said. And there's not really much that you can do. In terms of at my workplace, like I am very involved in the DI world at Redfin. And so I lead the Asian Pacific Islander Inclusive Slack channel, and we have collectively expressed that, you know, microaggressions are happening. They're happening at Redfin. You know, people get Asians mixed up, and they'll talk about things that they shouldn't be talking about. And so like we've gone more on the like policy side, where what are some programs that we can roll out company wide that can address this? And we'll have like, you know, a little quick sheet on microaggressions and what they are, and kind of send that out, instead of, you know, making POC at Redfin have to fight those on their own, because that's a really scary thing to do, like confrontation with your coworkers. So, you know, I think a lot of it is find the support at your company or in your workplace and see if there's anything that they can do about it. But in the end, you know, like there are a lot of things that we just end up facing and just have to keep going.
Yeah, I just backing off or piggybacking off of both of those. I have seen microaggressions at my workplace and even on like client calls. And those are really uncomfortable because like as someone who is, you know, obviously of a lower position than a big client, you don't really feel in the position to say like, hey, you know, don't say that kind of thing. And I don't know if that's just, you know, imposter syndrome taking over, but at the same time, like we've been saying, not escalating the situation is always the best. But definitely when I've encountered those situations, I talk to my team, and I'm lucky enough to have a team that I feel supported by and am, you know, comfortable with talking about how a situation made me feel or how it affected me if they didn't see it the same way because they're not women of color. So definitely, I think it's kind of unavoidable, unfortunately, seeing microaggressions, not only in the workplace, but I mean, I'm sure you guys see it in school all the time, but kind of taking ways to educate people and not really in a way that's not taking on that whole responsibility by yourself, because that shouldn't be, you know, our responsibility to educate every single person on what microaggressions against Asian Americans are, or against women, or, you know, other people of color. So I think in terms of growing confidence, just knowing that there are other women out there who experience the same thing as me, but still prevail and, you know, hold positions of power, that for me helps build my confidence, because it lets me know, you know, I know they probably even went through worse, women who are in higher positions of power. So if they can get through it, like I can as well. And that I think helps my confidence.
Something that helped me with confidence is also like seeking out the groups that are there to help you. So like we have a women at Redfin channel, and like they will vent and empower each other. And like, you know, sometimes you don't know if something's a microaggression. You're like, am I reading into this? And you can just like post it in that group where it's all like-minded people. They all, you know, have experienced what you've experienced probably. And they're able to, you know, empower you to either do something about it or give you options, or, you know, they can at least tell you how they've handled it before. And that usually always helps, just like, okay, I'm going to stop gaslighting myself, and like this is a real microaggression, and, you know, like deal with it then.
That's awesome. I like how you guys have that channel.
Mm-hmm.
One question I did want to ask was with the recent rise in Asian hate crimes, because of all of the rhetoric from the past administration about, you know, coronavirus originating from China, or, you know, Chinese people being the cause of coronavirus. Did you guys see a shift in your workplace? And I know I kind of asked this to Vanessa, but at least just even in your eyes and how you've been feeling at work, you know, do you sometimes feel drained, and just kind of how has these hate crimes affected your lives?
It's definitely affected my life. You know, when all of the attacks against our elders were happening. And then when the Georgia shooting happened and it was like Asian women that were being targeted, it feels very personal, you know, it feels like my grandma's going to be the one that's, you know, next, or I'm going to be the one that's next where somebody goes crazy and thinks that I'm, you know, their fetish. But in terms of like how that's affected me at work, I've taken mental health days, you know, when those things happened. There was a lot of support from our DEI team in, you know, just letting all managers know that like sensitive things are happening across the country, and it's better for you to check in with all of your employees and check in with your team and open that conversation if, you know, if you feel comfortable to. So I've taken time off. I've had a lot of discussions with other Asians at work where, you know, they needed a support system, and we just kind of like talked out our feelings, and we're all kind of venting together just about everything that was happening. And that just helps me feel like I do have support at work, and it helps me feel like I'm able to take this time if I need it. I'm not going to be, you know, seen as super dramatic or feel really weird taking the time. It's something that my work is trying really hard to normalize, which I think is really good, but it's definitely affected me and a lot of other people at my work too. And knowing that helps too.
Mhm. Yeah, I've definitely tried to take mental health days. There was specifically a day right after I had come back from a dinner where someone walking past my table on the street said a racial slur at us. So that just like threw me off for the entire, you know, kind of rest of the week. So I, on one hand, I felt like I had to show up for works because my team is small, and, you know, like I obviously have a lot of responsibilities, but I like really couldn't think about anything else. And this was a little, I think, shortly after the Georgia shootings. So I spoke with my team and kind of let them know how I was feeling. And I was really glad that I did, because I felt very supported. And, you know, we shifted priorities a little bit with things that we had to do for work, which that really helped me. And, you know, there's not any Asian women on my team. So I felt like, you know, should I even say something? Because I don't think they're going to understand. But even if they didn't, they definitely tried to empathize, and that really helped me. So I think with all the anti-Asian rhetoric, it's important to build that support system, or at least seek that out if you don't have it, you know, like immediately in your workplace.
Yeah.
There is another question in the chat from Jungwon, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. They said, "Thank you to the panelists. This is insightful, and I'm learning a lot about what happens in the private sector. I'm mostly here to learn, and if possible, if you could elaborate on ways in which Asian men as well as white people can be allies to the solidarity building that is very much difficult across various sectors of employment."
That's a great question. I think that is something that I've been really exploring lately too, because I have been vocal about, you know, my struggles and the fear that I have with everything that's happening. And I think sometimes people just don't know how to react to it, especially white people, where, you know, they're like, I want to say I understand, but I don't. And then like, I want to be there for you, but I don't know how. I think the easiest thing is just to check in with, you know, the people that you're worried about. If you have close friends, let them just, you know, even if it's a non-committal, like, hey, like, you don't have to respond to this, but just know that I'm here for you if you need anything. and hopefully empower them to ask for what they need too. So if you're a manager, then ask like, hey, are you doing okay? If you're not, like take a mental health day, or if you need anything switched around, just like how Anna's team did that for her, like ask for that to happen, or at least like if you're an ally, you can offer that. As for Asian men, they have been at my work, they've been really great in just like being more vocal, because, you know, they know that as a man, they most likely will get less pushback. They'll be able to be more aggressive in what they want without it being seen negatively. And so the Asian men in my community have been very great in just like, you know, pushing not just for Asians, but specifically for Asian women, and making sure that we are heard, and that our fears and, you know, like our concerns have been met and have been heard and acknowledged.
Thanks, Jenny. To add on to that, I think for me, in terms of Asian men, when thinking about just the Asian culture, I mentioned this previously, but the kind of, you know, don't speak out, stay in your lane, that I feel like takes a toll on Asian women when Asian men aren't speaking out on, you know, in support of Asian women and just our community in general. But I think especially this year, I've seen a large increase in people speaking out, especially from our community, which I really appreciate. And I think we're really starting to find that voice, which is great, and kind of breaking away from traditional standards of not speaking out and stuff. So like Jenny was saying, I think for Asian men, just really being advocates, front end advocates for Asian women, and speaking up for our challenges that we face, especially being a man and not facing all the challenges that we do. So I think that can be said the same for our white allies as well, but definitely for the Asian community, just kind of breaking away from, you know, not saying anything and not talking about emotions. You know, it's okay to talk about them and openly discuss it, and really just have those conversations, I think is a good way to build solidarity. For the panelists, I have a question that is personal to me, and I think I brought it up a couple of times on this call, but have you guys faced imposter syndrome in the workplace, and what have you done to overcome it if you have?
Definitely. I feel like you just go through so much schooling, and after schooling, they just like kind of put you into the pharmacy world, and I was kind of like, do I know my stuff? And it's kind of like troubling because it's like you did so much work, right? You know it, but then like with some things, you just realize that with practice and with like familiarity, it becomes easier. And just know at the end of the day to just do the best that you can, because that's really all you can do. And you're not the only one who feels like an imposter, right, when you're starting a new job or something like that. Yeah.
I think for me, imposter syndrome is definitely there, where you're just like, I don't know if I'm measuring up to all of my colleagues. I don't know if I'm really qualified for this position that I just got. And something small that helps me is just looking at other job descriptions for maybe a level higher. So I've looked at other jobs where it's, you know, it would be my promotion, but I've realized that I can do all of those things. So I'm like, okay, I'm definitely qualified for this position, if not a little overqualified or something like that. But also it's looking at the people that you work with, and, you know, like one is matching your work ethic with theirs. And if there's a role model at work, then you can also just talk to them and ask them like, hey, how am I doing? Like, from what you can see, or ask your manager, like, well, you should be having check-ins with your manager every now and then anyway, just like, how am I doing? What feedback do you have for me? What can I be doing better? And if that isn't really happening, then just ask them about it. And that way you don't have to wonder if you're like qualified or if you're doing enough or if you're doing well enough. Like, they can just tell you because they're the ones that hired you. They're the ones that you report to. All your deliverables go to them. So just like being very frank and open with my manager has helped a lot in like giving me confidence that I'm doing what I need to do.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree. Talks with my manager has definitely helped. And I think for me, I've seen my white colleagues, or specifically white male colleagues, who are either the same position as me or lower, who just automatically, are speaking up and kind of putting their voice in the room, which initially when I was starting out in the workplace, I was like kind of nervous to do that. But seeing that, I was like, oh, wow. I mean, like, I guess if they can do it, like what is stopping me, kind of thing. So that definitely has helped me over the year and a half or 2 years that I've been working. There's another question in the chat. Given that there is a history of anti-Blackness in the APIDA community, what have been your efforts for intersectional solidarity? And what have been the conversations about BLM and violence against the Black communities?
I really like that question. I think that was something that I specifically wanted to address with my community at Redfin. There is a lot of anti-Blackness in our community, and that's something that I think we really had to reckon with at the beginning when BLM was really big. And it's just been a continuing effort. And for me, I think it's just talking about it and addressing it with the people that I've been talking to. And that's like in my personal life, and that's in work and everything. But it's something that people will want to gloss over because they're like, yeah, but like that's how we were taught growing up, or that's how our parents were taught growing up. And even just the simple like statement of, yeah, but that's not right, or that's not okay, like that's not something that we should just let go. Even just saying that is like at least putting a firm stance down where that's not okay. And when when you put your foot down on that, then the people around you hopefully see that as an example and also want to do that. But in terms of at work, we also have a Black at Redfin group, and that's the inclusive Slack channel for our Black employees. And they actually were just the sweetest when all of the things started happening to the Asian community. They all got together and like sent this e-card to our community, and just like there were just so many messages of support and so many messages of just like solidarity, like we're here for you. And it wasn't until that point that I like really understood what they were going through a year before, when they kept hearing about all of these things. And at that point I was like, like they really understand how we're feeling and what we're going through and what we need. And this was exactly what we needed, is just to feel like we were being supported and being seen, and that the anti-Blackness that's not just anti-Blackness, but like the anti-Asianness that runs in their community is also being addressed, and is also like not something that they stand for and that they allow at the workplace. So that's just something that worked out really well for my workplace, and it's just been like 10 times more healing just to be able to talk to them about it and like be in solidarity with them, rather than just depending on our Asian community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at my work, a lot of I&D efforts had been already there, but really amplified when BLM first started getting, really big last year. And from that, I think support for the Asian community also stemmed from that as well. But as far as anti-Blackness in the APIDA community, I think it's important to get to the root of why, certain people still hold anti-Blackness beliefs and views, especially people our age and our generation. For me, sometimes it's a little bit surprising when I see, like my peers talking, saying stuff that's anti-Black, and like I can't believe it because I'm like, it's 2021 already and you're surrounded by like all like diverse people and you're seeing the news and just like how can you still hold these beliefs that are so wrong. But I've learned to kind of control my anger and really try to have those conversations and get to the root of, why do you think you hold these beliefs? And and it always goes to or usually goes to the root of, this is how my family is, and like this is what my grandparents were treated like, or whatever the case may be. But as Jenny was saying, it's okay to say that that's not right, and we should change those beliefs, especially now with the support that we need to be giving to the Black community and just our other minority communities. I think we need to be unified, especially against the fight in against white supremacy. So really for me, it's been trying to get to the root of why, some family members or some friends that I've seen on Facebook are still believing what they do. So definitely having a lot of conversations, but I think, it's been moving forward, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, I think like having conversations are very important when it comes to this. An example that I had was like my parents' friends overseas were kind of wondering what this Black Lives Movement was and like why it mattered and why are they saying Black Lives Matter versus all lives matter. And then I think it was, and my parents kind of understood it, but not to the full extent. And I was trying to explain to them that they're not saying like, and when it comes to like Black Lives Matter and all lives matter, it's more like they're trying to say like Black Lives Matters too, like that too, that inclusiveness is like kind of silent, but that's what they're implying. And like being to explain that to like my parents so that they could explain it to their friends, I think changed their view on the whole thing as well. And it's just having these conversations, which will, I think, over time, like change people and their thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And that brings up a good point of, this isn't just focused on America, it's all over the world. Like you see anti-Blackness or colorism, especially in the Asian community in Asia. So addressing those, and like even I'm from Mongolia, and we've seen those conversations, and my cousins were reaching out to me and asking me about what's going on in America kind of thing. So it's not just an America isolated topic, it's worldwide. So that brings up a good point. We are nearing the hour, and I don't want to take up a lot of time, but do you want to ask the audience if there's any other questions that you guys wanted, last minute questions that you guys wanted answered? Otherwise, I had one last question to, I guess, wrap up the panel. Okay, so I'll just ask my question. So stereotypes like the model minority myth that was created, few decades back to put the wrench in between the Black community and the Asian community. Those are really prevalent in school, especially in college, I would say. But would you guys say those stereotypes followed you in the workplace, or do you think that kind of left in college?
That definitely followed me into the workplace. Not necessarily in my workplace, but like when I told other people that I work in accounting, they're like, oh, of course you do. Or like, they will still ask me to do the mental math when I'm not even paying attention. So like it definitely follows me. And I've heard one person at work say before, like, oh, I don't know if Asians are really, experiencing that much racism. Like I know so many Asians and they're doing so well and they own businesses. And it's just one of those moments where like you roll your eyes and you're just like, oh my God, how do I even unpack that? How do I even talk to you about that? And they're probably the same people who will say, I'm not racist. I have friends who are Asian. And, while they're saying these kinds of things. So I think the model minority myth is something that I've really started learning about from this year and like last year. Like I always knew it was a thing, but I didn't realize how damaging it was to the Asian population until like, I really started researching about it. And now it's something that I'm trying to educate other people on, whether they're Asian or not, because, this is something I just learned. So maybe this is something that other people don't really know either. So I've just been trying to bring it up. And for the white people that don't even know what that is, I'm just like telling them what it is. And for the Asian people who know what it is, but like, they think they're benefiting from it, I'm explaining why this is not a benefit and it's actually harming most of us, if not all of us. So it's just talking about it again, like bringing it up in conversations and really tackling it when it's in the moment and people, don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say I learned the history of the model minority myth during a work event, and I didn't realize it was built out to put a wrench between the Black and Asian communities, but that's how it was brought out. And like the Asian immigrants, they were victims of it, and it's really still out there for sure. And I think it's something that's going to take a while to kind of shed from us, but hopefully with more like educating people more about the history of the model minority myth and why it is harmful, I think we'll hopefully get rid of it. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh yeah, there is a book called like So You Want to Talk About Race? I think is what it's called, and it talks about the model minority myth. And there's this like one passage where it basically says like this divide and conquer technique serves to redirect struggle against oppressive white supremacy to competition between Asian Americans and other people of color. And I think that's like something that we should all have conversations about because it is really harming us. Mm-hmm.
And that book is a really great read.
Yeah.
But that does bring us to the hour, and I just want to say thank you to the panelists, Jenny and Panisa, for all of your insightful answers and opening up about your experiences as a PETA woman in the workplace and just from your personal lives. And everyone, thank you for joining, and Lily for putting this event together, and Dr. Ha and Weston for supporting. We really do appreciate the collaboration, and having these conversations, I think, is important. So it was a great way to connect, especially with sisters and undergrad students who we haven't seen in a while. But thank you everyone for coming to the event and virtually talking with us.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
This was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.